Let's start with now the reemergence of Orr as a centerpiece, if you will, in the conspiracy, the corrupt conspiracy in the Department of Justice to absolutely subvert the presidency of President Trump.
Well, you know, we had the documents that we just uncovered earlier this week showing that the FBI had cut off Steele, supposedly, in November of 2016. Well, that was no impediment to Orr continuing to work with Steele, and as corruptly, the FBI taking still information from Steele through Orr while pretending that they were cutting him off, and not telling the FISA courts any of this. You have the corrupt relationship Orr had with Fusion GPS as a result of the conflict, as a result of his wife working there. And then, of course, you had the conflict with the conflict of interest that was potentially criminal with Strzok and company, who were out to get Trump for political purposes. I don't understand why this Mueller operation is allowed to continue, given it's built on sand and it's corruption.
I don't think there's any question in the minds of the public.
There's no doubt that's got to be stopped.
Yeah, Tom, I don't think there's any question in the minds of most in the public, certainly, about the conflicts that Mueller represents in being named special counsel, in accepting the post that Rosenstein swept aside as he named Mueller, and the continued conduct of the special counsel, which is, as the president has at the outset said, it is a witch hunt. There's been no evidence. We have 5 congressional committees that have produced no evidence of any collusion. This is, it is, as the president said, it's an illegal sham, and the Republican leadership, whether on Capitol Hill and leading the Senate, leading the House, they are not doing a thing to support this president, and that is beyond comprehension.
You know, the collusion investigation is over, and the media doesn't want to report it, but the special counsel himself has issued a series of indictments against Russians and others about collusion issues. There was no collusion with any Americans knowingly with the Russians related to anything about the campaign. So what else is there to investigate in terms of collusion?
So who will end it? Who will stop it? How does it end? Because it is a travesty.
I think the president needs to take executive or legal steps to stop it at this point, because the Justice Department isn't going to do it. I mean, look at this ridiculous Manafort prosecution that's going on out of the special counsel's office. We don't need a special counsel to do that. Right. The fact that they're letting the special counsel target Manafort over the cost of his suits and mortgage fraud and bank fraud and all of that, when they were hired to investigate Russia collusion, shows the leadership there is unwilling to take steps to control Mueller and constrain him, even in a reasonable way, to focus on what he was hired to do.
Well, the judge in that case has had a number of opportunities to stop the trial, to recognize that it was a contrivance, the prosecution by the special counsel, from dead files in the Department of Justice, which had already made decisions not to prosecute Manafort. So it is remarkable in that regard. It has nothing to do with the president nor the campaign that Manafort led for several months in the summer of 2016. Nonetheless, this is a judiciary that is showing itself to be every bit as corrupt as the leadership of the Department of Justice. We are watching partisan decisions being taken by judges, and it depends on who appointed them as to what one can expect from them in the courtroom and in their decisions and in their rulings. It's a travesty, but the question remains. You and I both know, and I think most Americans know, that the decision by the president, if he were to intervene individually and personally, whether it would be the firing of Rosenstein, if it would be the firing of the Attorney General or Bob Mueller, that's a highly politically charged decision, and he doesn't have a party united behind him to do so, because the rhinos, like Ryan in particular, and McConnell, and their like that sit in either the Senate or the House, will not support this president who is leading this party as it has not been led in modern times.
You know, he may not have the support of some Republicans in the Congress, but he has the support of the American people. I don't think there's much interest in seeing this investigation continue. The argument, I think, has taken hold with a good portion of the electorate, if not the majority, that this is a politicized investigation that needs to end. And look, the media goes crazy no matter whatever the president does. He should do the right thing here. The media will go crazy for a minute and a half and then move on to something else.
Yeah, I think that I would disagree with you on the latter part of your conjecture. And that is the national left-wing media is absolutely intent on subversion of this president. They watch the CNN broadcast, watch NBC, watch the Washington Post front page. There's 6 to 8 stories a day that are decidedly and pointedly negative about the Trump administration and personally attacking the President of the United States. These are not accidents. That kind of vitriol and hatred in support of an ideological purpose will not abate easily, in my opinion. Tom, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch.